Hey there, welcome. This is The James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Welcome to the big show. Well, I'm about to do an interview I hoped I would never do in my broadcast career, and that's talk to an American political prisoner. And we have just that. I don't know if there's a better name for this, but this is retired Air Force Lieutenant Colonel Larry Brock Jr., and he just got out of jail after loitering through the Capitol on January 6th. Welcome to the show, Colonel Brock. Let me hear your story. What happened on that day, January 6th?
Well, on that day, I went to go and listen to the president speak at the Stop the Steal rally at the Ellipse. And after that, I walked up to the Capitol to join the protest on the outside of the Capitol. When I went there, by the time I got there, the fencing and the bike railing had been removed already. I walked up the steps, didn't see any violence or anything like that, and then right past 4 Capitol policemen that said nothing through open doors and into the Capitol. I roamed around inside the Capitol, took some pictures inside the rotunda, actually stopped a man that was chasing another guy in plain clothes, which actually turned out to be an undercover Capitol police officer named Nairobi Timberlake. On the stand in my trial, he testified that I actually helped him. And then I picked up the infamous zip ties by accident after stepping on them. You can clearly see this in my video. And then I had the misfortune of walking by the Senate door, seeing someone sitting in Vice President Pence's chair. So I walked into the Senate and said, "You need to get out of that chair." That, again, is all on video for everyone to see. At no time did I engage in any violence. I was seen stopping violence at multiple times, and the judge noted that in the trial that I had in D.C. later on.
So were you arrested that day, many days later? When did they take you into custody?
Sir, I was arrested actually on Sunday, I believe it was the 10th, but I flew back actually that night when I got back to my hotel room and I turned on the news. I knew it was going to get bad. So I took care of some personal business and the next day with my family, and then I went to go stay with my father because I was receiving numerous death threats from the left, and my father lives inside a gated community. And while there, I was told that the FBI got my phone number, but they didn't call me until the 12th, telling me that they just wanted to talk to me. Now, the reason for their delay, they had my phone number on Friday, was they wanted to stage I'm going to call it a show arrest. They wanted the SWAT team coming into my father's house. I don't know why they didn't come. It's not like we were hiding anything. But I know that because my nephew saw them staging in an elementary school near his house. On the Sunday, I was told that they just wanted to talk to me, so I was quite happy about that because I figured they were going to arrest me. However, after we arranged the meeting, my attorney called me and said, "Hey, they just issued a warrant for your arrest." So I went and turned myself in an hour early. And the reason I did that is I figured the FBI would play up the media angle. And sure enough, when my nieces came to get my car, the media was there in mass. So it was a good thing that I turned myself in an hour early to the FBI.
Okay, so what are the charges?
Well, at that point, I didn't know. I found that out when I was arraigned the next day. There were, I believe, 5 or 6 misdemeanors, something like, parading, picketing. They said disorderly conduct. Still haven't figured that one out because I did everything that was orderly. And then, several other, I'm going to call it, like going onto the floor of a House of Congress, which it did happen. So that's fine. It wasn't until June of 2021 that they actually charged me with the felony obstruction case.
So what's the obstruction for?
I would like you to tell me that because before I even walked into the building, Congress stopped. And they stopped as a result of the pipe bombs that were allegedly planted by J6ers. But there's a whole series of investigations going on reference those. So they said I obstructed something that had already stopped before I even walked into the building. But the judge did find me guilty of it. So it's felony obstruction of Congress. Now, this is a modification of a law that was designed after Enron to stop, I'm going to call it financial experts or accountants, from destroying government evidence. And so that's why this is such a contentious issue. As a matter of fact, many of us were on pins and needles today because the Supreme Court heard oral arguments on the 1512 in March, and we anticipate their decision either tomorrow or within the next week or two.
How long were you in jail?
I was in jail for 372 days inside the Springfield Gulag.
For a bunch of misdemeanors and one questionable felony?
Yes, sir.
How many other people were held for over a year on such flimsy charges?
Well, I believe they have settled like about 800 to 900 cases. I think that there's between 200 and 300 of us that are currently incarcerated. Many of those are facing assault charges, and even some of those are fairly dubious. They need to all be looked at. An example, a man I met inside prison says and it's verified by video, says he just grabbed a police officer's shield when he was trying to stand up, and so they charged him with assault. But I would say probably your average jail time we've been looking at is around 2 to 4 years. Most people take a plea deal because there is a trial tax in America. If you actually try and exercise your rights to go and have a trial,
due process,
by a jury or a bench trial, they're going to pretty much double your punishment. You can count on.
What finally got you out?
Well, it's actually interesting. I'm at a halfway house right now. With what's the First Step Act and federal good conduct time, my actual out date is the 20th of August. Now, that's on a 24-month sentence, which is what the judge imposed. However, the law changed in February, and we were given a 2-point reduction, and then the appellate court ruled that the judge incorrectly sentenced me and took another 3 points off. Now, what that meant is instead of 24 to 30 months, which is what the sentencing guidelines originally were, my sentencing guidelines are now 10 to 12 months. But the judge didn't let me out from that. Honestly, it's time in a halfway house still on the 2-year sentence. So the judge has issued an order saying that once Fisher is decided, he's going to, even with all those things that are in my favor now, he's going to give me a 16-month sentence. Now, the thing about a 16-month sentence is it was served as of 1 April. So I've been languishing, if you will, inside that gulag for an additional 2 months for no reason.
All right, Colonel Brock, can I hit pause and we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll continue with your story?
Absolutely.
All right, we're talking with retired Air Force Lieutenant Colonel Larry Brock, Jr., who is still at a halfway house in his punishment phase from January 6th. No forced entry, no property damage, no assault, no attacking anyone. I don't even think he flipped anyone the bird. Clearly, this is a political prisoner in 2024 America. More with him next on The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome back to The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. I'm having a very not fun, sober, but important conversation with a political prisoner in America 2024. His name is Air Force Lieutenant Colonel Larry Brock Jr., and he's still in a halfway house after loitering through the Capitol on January 6th. Brandon texted in a Facebook message, brought up the fact that something I was thinking of too. They trump up a felony. And that's suspicious because for so many of these people, depending on what state you live in, that felony can prevent you from voting.
Yes, sir. That's just one of many things that you lose. I also, it prevents you from the right to bear arms. The career that I built after the FAA took away my pilot's licenses, I was a home inspector, and I'm not certain if the state will let me have that license. It's to be determined, and honestly, I haven't pushed the issue yet because if the felony is overturned, I'm certain I will get the license. So it benefits me to actually wait before I reapply for my home inspector license.
Well, tell the people listening about your military background. You know, you're not some guy that's trying to burn the Capitol down and institute some sort of insurrection. I mean, your entire career was protecting this place.
Yes, sir. I went to the Air Force Academy in 1985. I've always been a patriot. It's just the way I was brought up. So I fought in both Iraq and Afghanistan numerous times. The best days and the hardest days of my life, other than prison, prison wasn't the best days, were when I was in Afghanistan in 2002 as a close air support pilot. And then, again, I served as a reconnaissance pilot as a defense contractor from 2016 through 2020, finding targets for guys that flew fighters like I did in Iraq and Afghanistan. In the interim, I was also a defense contractor over in Saudi Arabia, and I spied for the U.S. government at great personal risk, getting them things that they were asking me to find for them. So I've served this country pretty much my whole life, with the exception of maybe 2 to 3 years.
That sounds like the opposite of an insurrectionist.
Well, it's funny. They keep using that word, and I hearken back to Princess Bride.
It's a ridiculous use of the word. I mean, it's so insanely backwards. And you're right. The Princess Bride rule fits.
However, I absolutely not an insurrectionist. Even today, when there is a great clamor on the right, for us to treat them the same way that they've treated us,
No.
I don't think the American people want that either. What we want is justice. We need to restore the justice system. And there are ways of doing this legally and correctly. And I think that's what all Americans want to see. We don't want an eye for an eye. We want a return to a constitutional republic.
Well, yeah, and look, the insurrectionist stuff is so easy to blow out of the water now that I'm talking to someone who is accused of being an insurrectionist. You were walking through the Capitol on January 6th. What did you want to replace the Constitution with, Larry?
I would never want to replace the Constitution. It's funny, there are...
What new system of government were you trying to institute there, Larry?
Not a single one. Sir.
Right. You weren't trying to overturn the government. You weren't trying to rename the country, make it into a communist Marxist state or anything like that. What the heck? I don't even know where this comes from other than the insurrectionist clause in the Constitution.
No, but it was the word that they all used, and it was interesting. You heard it on almost every news channel. We heard it from both Republicans and Democrats that night. And, it honestly, the drumbeat never ceases. When I look at, my Twitter feed, I hear insurrectionist, traitor, all these things all the time. But it has no effect on me anymore.
Well, it shouldn't. Look who's saying it. These are people who think men can have babies.
Correct.
Let's talk about what prison was like. Were you one of the guys that was in solitary for a while?
Yes. As a matter of fact, I should have an article coming out on Declassified, the Substack by with Julie Kelly that details all of this. But it was unfortunate for me, but I believe I'm the senior ranking political prisoner of the Biden regime. So I put out a list of guidelines for people, and it will be in that article. Namely, just keep faith with your fellow prisoners, keep accountability, keep your heads up. You're not criminals, and have faith that the American people will eventually fix this. And for that, because I was senior, I felt, I didn't feel, I was obligated by the code of conduct to put those guidelines out. And for that, they threw me in the hole for, I believe it was a total of 127 days the first time.
Oh my goodness.
One third of my jail sentence in the hole. And a lot of that, this will all be detailed, was not pleasant at all, as you might imagine.
No, I have no idea what you guys went through. Please, details.
All right. Well, you're confined 23 hours a day in a cell with another guy or in solitary. And frankly, I preferred being by myself at times because, a couple of my cellmates, namely one, was I consider borderline psychotic and honestly dangerous. So that was not a pleasant experience there. You really are offered very poor health care, if any. And I happened to have the misfortune of having an abscess tooth that eventually popped after about, a week of growth. So it was not pleasant. Now, in the big scheme of things, when we look at political prisoners across the world, I was still treated well. This is the United States. It's not the Soviet gulag. I wasn't starved. But, it was, for what I did, it was certainly not merited. And as a matter of fact, because they did not like it, they tried to transfer me to another prison, the CMU, Communications Management Unit in Terre Haute. Now, that prison has the distinction of being known amongst guards there as the jihadi prison. And one of the Patriot guards in Springfield told me he was very concerned for my safety because He did not want to see a man that had carried the sword for the United States against al-Qaeda and Taliban put amongst them as a prisoner. So I was very lucky that transfer was denied. I have to give thanks to both God and my uncle, who wrote a letter to the director of the Bureau of Prisons that was pretty much telling her what you're trying to do is tantamount to a death sentence.
Well, listen, Lieutenant Colonel Brock, you're a political prisoner talking to tens of thousands of your fellow American citizens right now. What lessons, what information do we need to take away from this experience? What can you tell us on the outside?
Well, the first thing I would tell you is that this is an arbitrary and capricious government with a fully weaponized Department of Justice right now. I think I'm not going to say it couldn't happen to anybody, but I do ask everyone to be on guard and not do anything stupid. I personally do not recommend attending any protests in a blue state or a blue city at all. That being said, the best thing that we can do, and as a matter of fact, I spoke with the newly elected chairwoman of the Texas Republican Party today, is to reelect Donald Trump. He is the one man that I believe will save our republic. And I told her that duty and honor command me to do nothing for the next 4 months to help my fellow political prisoners to ensure that Donald Trump is elected, that I will do anything that they ask me to do to that end.
Well, to us, you're a bit of a hero now, Mr. Brock. Appreciate you taking the time on the James Show. Whenever you take your next steps, you got a book coming out or an article or some event coming up, let us know. I'll be happy to use my show as a conduit to get your story out.
Thank you, sir. I actually have both coming out soon. Thank you.
All right. Well, be in touch then, because I would love to have you back on the show and not let this slip through the cracks and be forgotten. That's the one thing we need to do, is not let these guys be forgotten, because it will happen again if we just let it go into the ether.